Hello everybody and welcome back to the Airing It Out podcast. Thank you for joining us in this week's episode where we are talking about the art of letting go and how releasing control and managing our unmet expectations might actually bring us closer to finding inner peace. But before we go steamrolling ahead into the episode, into the good stuff, all I will say is that if you're enjoying what we're doing, if you believe in what we're doing or you think that it might help somebody, please consider giving us a like, giving us a comment, getting involved, or perhaps sharing it with your friends or someone who you think might benefit from what it is we're doing here. We appreciate you being here. Without further ado, let's get on with it. The topic that we're talking about today, I'll admit, is something that I am guilty of doing more than most people, because I was afraid of so many things for a long time, almost all things, that I wanted to have control over everything, particularly things that were outside of my control. Because what that meant to me was that if I can have some kind of agency and control over something externally, then that means I might be able to dictate what I allow in and what I can mitigate, what can potentially hurt me. I was so afraid that I put up my own barriers and defenses and tried to hold on to these things because I didn't want to be hurt by them. So I sought to control everything in my life, far, far beyond the things that I could actually control. And where did this leave me? Well, it left me extremely unhappy, for one. I was unsatisfied. And nothing was ever enough. And that made me feel like less of a person. It made me feel like less of a man. Sure. It left me feeling wanting. And that I was never good enough. So why do we need to let go? Why do we need to take a step back from the things we can't control and find some kind of acceptance in only being able to manage and have some kind of agency over things that we can control? Because ultimately, the world isn't ours to control. Or at least I found it in my experiences, it isn't mine to control. Nor does it revolve around us. Now, that might be a little bit of a hard truth in itself if you haven't watched our last episode. And perhaps something that we can learn from letting go of things outside of our control is that maybe we're part of something bigger than ourselves. But we'll get onto that later. We're going to have a look at a couple hypothetical scenarios and see how just a matter of shifting our perspective can help us consider ways of letting go of things. So say you've arranged to meet up with a friend. You haven't seen them for a while and you're pretty busy at the moment. But you want to see them and you enjoy spending time with this person. But at the 11th hour, they've let you down and they said that they're not going to be able to make it. They may or may not have provided a good enough reason. Now you might want to think, this really pissed me off. I'm not happy. I had loads of stuff that I could be doing. I'm under a lot of pressure at the moment. I really wanted to see you, but you've let me down. And that's not cool. And you might then go to them and say, listen, what the fuck is going on? You've upset me. I feel a little bit disrespected. And why is this happening? Is this your problem? Have you made this my problem? That is one way that we can look at it. That is one way of us trying to take the external circumstances of the situation and control them. But how much of that can we actually control? Another way of looking at that situation is, have you ever been let down by someone at the 11th hour where you've got not much time and you're under a lot of pressure, but you thought, okay, I understand that this person might not be able to see me. They might have their own reasons. They might be busy. They might have had some family emergency. But what that means is now I've got a little bit more time. The time that I would have spent seeing them, okay, I'm upset and a little bit disappointed, but that's okay because I'll probably have another opportunity to see them again. We don't always know what's going on and nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect, and perhaps this is them exercising or exhibiting to me that they are not, and that's okay, because, if they're a good friend or if they're someone that means a lot to you, they'll still be there. Another hypothetical situation. Have you ever been under so much pressure, whether it's internal or external, where you say to yourself, I need to get this done. I have to get this done. I have to be there by this particular time, and I have to show up and I have to do this. If I don't, then things are going to go wrong. People are going to look at me and people are going to say things. They're going to judge me, and that might really affect how things go for my future. That's us trying to control other people's opinions, the future, and overall things that aren't in our control. Another way that we can look at that kind of situation is, have you ever been under so much pressure, whether it's internal or external, that it's come to a point where you've taken a step back and said, look at how much grief, stress, and pressure I'm putting myself under. Do I really need to be doing this? Is the amount of pressure that I'm putting myself under to achieve this thing, or to be there by the certain time, or to meet this other person's expectations, really worth the way that I'm feeling, or the way that I'm being made to feel? You're a person, not a pressure cooker. So what can we do? A couple practices for letting go in this situation. Practice self-compassion. Say, okay, there's a chance that I might not get this. I might not be there. I might not meet this person's expectations. And that's okay. We're not perfect. We're not going to get it right all the time. We can't expect ourselves to. And that is part of being human. We can't control others. I can't control what their expectations are. I can't control their impressions of me. I can only do the best that I can do. And I can only do that right now. I can't do that in 15, 20 minutes or hours when this important date might be. That is then, and this is now. Don't jeopardize your present moment for something that hasn't even happened yet. Do the best with what you can at this very moment. And what that might look like is letting go of that pressure, letting go of that stress, taking a step back and reevaluating where you're at, where you're feeling, and what can you actually do now. The thing is as well, the world keeps turning. People forgive, people accept, people move on. Today will become tomorrow, and tomorrow the next day. This week will become the next, and next week will become next month. The world keeps turning. People make mistakes. People move on. A lot of the time we catastrophize. Something goes wrong, then the next thing might not go our way. And then after that, something might not go wrong because of that thing. And oh shit, everything is starting to snowball downhill at a dangerously rapid pace. And we think, shit, everything is fucked. We're all going to die. But how often is it actually that case? How often does the worst case scenario happen? And another quick little method, I'd probably save this for later in the video, is if that does happen, if you do begin to catastrophize, think, okay, well, firstly, take a step back. Take yourself away from that heightened emotional state of stress, nerves, pressure. Take a deep breath and say, okay, what is the worst case scenario? You've got to be brave enough to have a look and say to yourself realistically what that is. Okay, so it could be this. How bad actually is that? Okay, what can we realistically do now to either mitigate the effects of that or perhaps prevent that from becoming a reality? There are ways around it. And the point being, change your perspective, take a step back and give yourself a bit of grace. Remove that pressure, remove that stress, let go. The point being of these two examples is that sometimes letting go is a matter of perspective. And every time we're in this situation, we get to choose. And that choice is whether we let what we cannot control weigh us down. So ask yourself, are you going to let this situation weigh you down? Okay, you can either carry on down this road and let it weigh you down, or you can say, no, I'm not. Okay, what can you do? What can you let go of? Something worth considering as well is this thing that you're worrying about, is this thing that is troubling you or bothering you, is it actually within your control? something that we speak often about on the podcast is we cannot control other people. Other people have their own lives, their own decisions, their own thoughts, their own feelings. And, pardon me, it's almost futile to think that we can have such an influence over them that they are willing to do exactly what we want to fit our needs and our circumstances. So we can't control other people. Other people will be as they be, whether they're a part of our lives or not. It's difficult because people affect us. We have emotional attachments to people. We have professional attachments to people. But ultimately, we can choose whether or not we let this individual, that individual, or the next affect us as individuals. And we can do that by letting go of these emotional attachments, it is emotional attachments. If someone does something to afflict you or hurt you or says something about you, okay, cool. Like with that example earlier, they might be having a bad day. They might be in a shitty mood. Somebody might have just said the exact same to them and they're projecting it onto us. Okay, that's all right. They're going to go about their day. Maybe this is something that they need to process, but they've perhaps chosen a strange and not very nice way of doing it. All right, but your choice is, are you going to let that bother you? Are you going to let that ruin your day? Or are you going to create a chain effect of negative days? No, you don't have to. You can carry on about your day as if you were. You might have been having a good day. You might have been having an all right day. But it's your choice as to whether or not you can let that affect you and have a shit day. Something worth considering. Letting it go. Let's have a look at it in action. Where can we see it? It's all well and good. Not every instance of letting go is a monk sat on the side of a mountain and the world disappears around him. So where can we see it? We can see it in the Olympics. I don't know if anybody noticed, but it's become a little bit more of a trend for sprinters or the runners or anybody that has to do this really high performance athletic stuff. At the start, before they're getting ready, they're kind of dancing, they're kind of moving. And this is something that's actually been found in regards to intensity of exercise and performance, in that when you train at 100%, you're actually trying to work so hard that you're kind of getting in the way of your body moving more effectively and fluidly. So these athletes stay loose, they stay calm, they stay kind of easy moving, because when they work between like 80 and 90%, they actually have that kind of looseness, just that little bit of looseness, to really make their bodies actually work quite faster and more effective at what it is they're trying to do. Another one, I heard this on a podcast about marine training. What they would do is they'd say to these Marines, they'd get them in a swimming pool, chuck a big heavy brick right at the bottom of the deep end, and they say, okay, go and get it. Go and get it. And all these Marines would be clamoring, clawing, doggy paddling, whatever it is, to get to that brick at the bottom of the pool, maximum effort. And they would really struggle. Some of them would be floundering around like fishies and really not having a good time about it. But what they found, and the point of the lesson that they taught them, is when they stopped trying, they let go of all the effort, all the exertion, and just sunk to the bottom of the pool. Not only would they be able to get down there and reach that brick and get back up, but they would have done so with such a significantly less amount of effort. We find this in boredom. I've spoken about Neil Gaiman, the author's writing technique of going out into your garden and giving yourself two choices: do absolutely nothing and write. You can sit there and do absolutely nothing, but after a while that gets boring. So you kind of let go of all the other distractions, and that's when your creativity happens. When you let go of all the things that you might want to be doing or might want to be stimulating yourself with, that's where the magic of boredom comes into place. That's when you start thinking for yourself, taking some initiative and becoming self-sufficient in prescribing something interesting, unique and creative to your boredom. Where has this been in my life then? What anecdotes do I have to offer? About 2 years ago, I've spoken again on the podcast. If anyone's able to find it and reference that in the comments, you get a gold star. I meditated on this exact thing. I came away from uni having a really regimented, structured, planned schedule, and it was very effective for that time. But when I came back, I tried to implement that, and it just wasn't working. I was trying so hard. I was forcing things. I told myself that I was working every day for a better tomorrow, but never was I present, never was I satisfied, never did I feel like myself, never did I connect with myself. And I was incredibly unhappy and distraught and burning out, and I didn't know what to do. And I meditated on it. I came up with an analogy, and it was that if I were a tree, the branches of the tree would be all of my goals, my aspirations, my projects, the things that I was doing with my time, the things that I was trying to force. I thought at this present moment, what I'm doing is it's like I've got a white knuckle tight grip on these aspirations, these projects, these things that I'm doing. I'm not letting them be. I'm holding on to them. I am trying to control them because I don't want to let go. I want to control them and make them happen the way that I wanted them to. But then the idea came to my head, the branch that doesn't bend with the wind breaks. And that's what I was doing. I'm not going to say losing my grip, because that is a very poor term for the analogy we're talking about. But I was starting to break. I was starting to crack. I was starting to come undone because I was trying to control these things that ultimately weren't in my control. So I learned to let go. I learned to let go of the growth of these branches and then let them become swaying in the wind. I can't control them, so I'm going to nourish them and feed them from my roots up through me, and then put the work out, do it, and then let it be. I can't control it, so don't try. We're going to round this episode off with how you can manage some expectations and learning to let go. First of all, it is just managing those expectations. We have to acknowledge what our expectations are of others. Do we need them? What would happen if we don't have them? Would we survive? Would it be better to let this thing go, let this person go, be themselves, and let us be ourselves? Is that old adage of, if you love something, let it go. And I think that's true in this case. Let it go. You love it. Let it be what it needs to be. Let it be free to do as it will. That way, you're not holding on to it so tightly. You're not giving yourself that emotional, not burden, tension. You're not giving yourself that emotional tension that could, bounce back and hurt you. So evaluate your expectations. What are they? Do you need them? Recognize and exercise your will to choose. You don't have to let everything affect you, positively or negatively. That's something that the Stoics will argue, whether you choose to let the positives affect you as well as the negatives. But when something does happen, take a step back and ask yourself, am I going to let this affect me? Do I want to? It is my choice and it is my will to choose. Maybe that might help. Another one, ask yourself, can I control this? Is this within my control? And although it is hard, but if the answer is no, practice saying, okay, I'm going to let it go. This one I learned from Talk Club, a support group that I was a part of. Manage your uds. That sounds a bit weird, but listen, could, would, and should. All of those words we use commonly apply extra pressure to everything that we do. Those words in our vocabulary add expectations for ourselves and others. You should do this. I could do this. Or would you do this? So let's have a look at those words in our vocabulary. See how we use them. Do we need to? And what can we use instead? So that is our episode on the art of letting go. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you do, before you let go of the Airing It Out podcast until the next time, please consider giving us a like, favourite, subscribe, a follow, or maybe even donate to our Buy Me a Coffee. It helps us keep doing what we're doing. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here. We love you guys, and take care of yourself.